If you rescue your kids every time they stumble, they're never going to learn those lessons.
Welcome to Midland Money Mindset, your weekly dose of inspiration and insights to ensure you enjoy each step of your journey. Whether you're saving for the future, planning your next big adventure, or simply looking to add more joy to your life, you've come to the right place. Now, let's dive in.
So many people chase success and still feel like something's missing. The titles look good, the numbers add up, but the impact, the fulfillment, it's just not there. Today's guest believes success should be measured differently. Scott MacGregor is the founder and CEO of the Outlier Project, publisher of Outlier magazine, a 4-time author, Forbes contributor, and one of the most recognized voices on impact-driven leadership and human connection. With record-setting net promoter scores, multiple American Business Awards, and a career that began as the youngest national account manager in a Fortune 500 company, Scott has lived at the intersection of performance and purpose. In this conversation, Scott challenges us to embrace adversity, redefine networking as genuine friendship, and live into the answers that matter most, so success becomes something you feel, not just something you achieve. I'm Larry Sprung, your host for the Midland Money Mindset and founder and wealth advisor of Midland Financial. Let's dive into the show. Well, I am super excited today to have Scott MacGregor with us. Welcome to the show. I'm so excited to dive in with you today, Scott.
Thank you, Larry. I appreciate it. I know this is a long time coming, so I've been looking forward to it.
Yeah, we've battled snowstorms and all kinds of stuff, so I appreciate you. It's been a heck of a winter in the Northeast here, but as you know.
It has been brutal.
Yeah, but I guess, last couple of years haven't been that bad. So listen, our listeners, we all love hearing about the entrepreneurial journey. Can you tell us a little bit about yours?
Yeah, I'm meant to be an entrepreneur like most people. That's not how it started. So started in a corporate job, worked at a Fortune 500 company, did very well there, but realized pretty quickly at a young age, working at a behemoth company was not my thing. So I got an opportunity when I was 29 to do something that was pretty close to entrepreneurship. I got a job at 29 as a chief revenue officer for a startup. So I was employee number 5 or 6. We wound up growing that company to over 300 people. And then 11 years ago, I started a talent strategy company called Something New. Then 5 years ago, I started a community called the Outlier Project. And then 2 years ago, I started a magazine called Outlier Magazine. So it's been a fun entrepreneurial ride.
Amazing. I mean, it sounds like it was something that once you got started in that direction, it just kept rolling like a snowball.
Yeah, I grew up relatively poor in a very, very affluent town. And as a CRO, I was making quite a bit of money. It seems so irresponsible, Larry, to jump off the cliff and do something, with no safety net. But thankfully, my wife, Meg, really encouraged me, believed in me, never questioned that the business could fail or stumble out of the gate or anything like that. So without her encouragement, I don't know that I ever would have jumped off the cliff, but she gave me a gentle nudge, and that meant the world to me.
Yeah, it's interesting that you said that because I have had a similar experience with my wife, Denise, who's now part of our business. She wasn't at the beginning, but her support and encouragement. And I think that gets lost a lot of times with entrepreneurs. If you have the wrong spouse and you don't have that support system, it could really be a hindrance. But if you have that support, it could be a huge motivator and a huge help to your success. Wouldn't you agree?
Couldn't agree more. She had blind faith in me. Probably at times more faith. I'm like, man, this is risky. Does she know how risky this is? But she believed in me, and thank God she did. She's the best.
That's great that you had that same experience. So, one of the things you talk about is impact, right? You talk a lot about impact as the best barometer for success. What do you mean by that, and why do you think that's so important?
It's the only thing that really matters. I'm sure when this gets launched, there will be a laundry list of, Scott wrote these books, started these companies, won these awards. At the end of the day, I get it. That's like the highlight reel. But at the end of the day, nobody's really going to care about companies I built or books I wrote, or they don't care about the house I live in or the car I drive. What lasts is the impact you make. So for me, I get so much enthusiasm and motivation because the impact that we're making, the Outlier project that I run has about 750 members. And the impact we're making on those 750 lives is incredible. And then you see the ripple effect from that because all of those people then impact other people. And, I just think that's what life is all about. It's not about, the house you live in, the car you drive, or a bunch of awards you've won. It's about the impact you make on other people's lives.
Yeah. And do you think, impact, that you're saying impact on other people's lives is your version, but do you feel like other people could have different versions of how they quantify impact, or do you think it's really just that impact on other people's lives?
I think it comes in different shapes and sizes, but I think it does boil down to impact on people's lives. Like some people want to build $1 billion business, and I wouldn't say that they just want to do that for financial gain. They want to, do good things in the world and impact people's lives. It's just a different flavor of impacting. And then you've got people that run nonprofits, and that's maybe a more direct line to impacting somebody's life. But so I do think it comes in different flavors, but at the end of the day, impact is everything.
Yeah, I agree. And, one of the things I know you talk about is adversity. And, in my household, we've been talking about adversity a lot recently. My son, who's 19, is playing junior hockey, and I've shared this story out in the universe as well. And a few weeks ago, he got traded from one team to another, gives us a call at 10 o'clock in the morning. Basically, within a couple hours, we helped him pack up. He's on an airplane to a totally different part of the country, actually moved from Connecticut, flew to Corpus Christi, Texas, where he'd never been. 24 hours later, he's playing in his first game with his new team. And 72 hours later is moving into a house in New Mexico. So it was a bit of a whirlwind and a lot of adversity, right? And I think facing adversity, and I talk about Division I college athletes, specifically hockey journey, especially, I think they face adversity, and, embracing that can be such a gift, and I know you talk about that as well. How do you think we can help more people embrace adversity as a gift?
It truly is. I think it's all how you look at things. It's your mindset, You can't grow without adversity. Adversity is the fertilizer for growth. So your son, and I don't know if is it Zach or Jeremy?
Jeremy.
So Jeremy's going to grow a lot from, being traded and being in a foreign place and having to flex those muscles of making new friends and adapting to new coaching and all of those things. That's where growth is, outside of your comfort zone. I always think mentally, my mental framework is no matter where I'm at the lowest point in my life. And, there's been some doozies in my life. And I always think if I looked behind me, how long would that line be that would take my place in that moment, at my darkest hour? And the answer is always the line is so long, regardless of the adversity, that I would never be able to see the end of it. And I think it just reframes, where am I at? Like, it's looking at it through an optimistic lens. I don't want to bring adversity on myself. I know that every time that I've faced adversity, I've grown exponentially and I've become a better father, a better husband, a better leader, a better entrepreneur, a better friend. So adversity truly is a gift.
Yeah, adversity is inevitable, right? We're all going to face it no matter who we are, no matter what our means are, no matter what our situation is. But it seems kind of counterintuitive to some degree because a lot of people these days, like, raising kids, it's almost like we want to protect them from this adversity. And it's actually counterintuitive. We really want them to figure out a way to approach it and embrace it like you're talking about.
It's the biggest disservice you can do to your children is to inoculate them from any adversity. It creates so many problems. It's done always out of a place of love. But the reality is, if you rescue your kids every time they stumble, they're never going to learn those lessons because life is difficult. There's always a bus that's going to round the corner and run you over, and you just have to be prepared for it. So, to me, it's exciting to see, your son Jeremy go through what he's going through now because he's going to wind up stronger on the other end.
Yeah. My older son faces adversity every weekend because he's on the other side. He's an official refereeing hockey games and has a lot of adversity from the parents in the stands, yeah. Right? So, one of the things I know you talk about and you're passionate about is living into the answers. Can you share with our listeners what you mean by that and why you're so passionate about it?
I think a lot of people, in order to have action, in order to have a bias for action, they need to know how the story's going to end. And because that's so far out, it in some ways makes it very difficult for people to even take the first step. So they get paralyzed. So I'm a big believer, you need to have forward momentum. You need to constantly be moving forward. And the way that I move forward is I take the data that I have today and I say, what direction do I want to go in based on that data? I don't need to know how the story is going to end. I just need to know what's the next step I'm going to take. Then I take that step. I have more data. I evaluate that and I live into the answers. So I don't need to know what the actual, end of the day answer is. I just have to have an idea of where I want to go, and then I can take those steps. So it's scary at first for a lot of people to kind of step into the unknown, but that's the way that you get forward momentum. That's the way that you collect more data to make more informed decisions that will dictate wherever you go in life.
How do you feel about getting those answers? Do you feel like you have to somewhat disconnect from the situation, almost like take a breather from it so you can just naturally and organically think about it? Or is it a better path to actually sit down, carve out some time and lean into and really put a lot of thought into it? Do you feel like there's a better method to coming up with those answers or figuring that out?
That's a great question. I think it's different for everybody. I'm not a big analyzer. I'm not an overanalyzer. I believe that we are born with a supercomputer between our ears. And, what sounds maybe not woo-woo, but maybe not the way that you'd want to make decisions with your gut. Your gut is just you taking all of your experiences and all of your knowledge and making decisions based on it. So I'm constantly calculating risk and all these different factors based on experience. I'm not somebody who sits down and really spends a lot of time contemplating. I have a feeling of what I want to do next, and I move in that direction, just knowing that if I take a false step, which I've done a million times, I can always course correct, but I'd rather be moving forward.
Yeah, I think you and I are very similar about that. Anytime I go against my gut, it's usually the wrong decision. Yeah. And I agree. There's a reason why your gut is your gut. It's because it's actually making a lot of those calculations and assessments for you, in the background, and you're not realizing it. So, one of the things I speak often about is your network equals your net worth, because your network, you can get almost anything you ever need or wanted from that network. And you flip the script on networking a bit and you talk about it as building friendships. How has that been a catalyst for your growth?
It's been my whole life. So Larry, the number one thing in my life are the relationships that I've built. And the higher access and influence relationships you have, the more things you can do, whether those are business related or personal or whatever the case may be. It's just a fact of life. So I kind of don't really like the word networking. Networking to me is very transactional. It's very, I do this, I get this for doing that. That's not appealing to me. I just think of it as building friendships. I love to meet interesting people that are ambitious and that do interesting things. And it doesn't matter if that's in sports or that's in business or military or entertainment. I'm kind of obsessed by that. And that's why I love Outliers so much. But I love building those friendships. I never look at it as networking. But when I look at every good thing that's happened to me in my life, every business that I've started, everything good that's happened, it all goes back to relationships that I poured into, in some cases, decades and decades ago. But those pay very rich dividends. And often those dividends are not financial. And that's another area that people screw up is they say, well, wait a second, if I pour into this relationship with Larry, what's my ROI going to be in 30, 60, or 90 days? I view it as, is Larry an interesting guy? If Larry's an interesting guy living an extraordinary life, then I want to pour into that friendship and, we'll see what happens. But I'm not trying to figure out, what my ROI is going to be from that friendship.
Let's pause for a moment. What actually brings you joy? It's something most people never think about, yet it shapes how your life unfolds. You're busy. You make responsible choices. You even plan ahead. But have you slowed down long enough to ask if what you're building supports a life you enjoy living? That's the reason I built my YouTube channel, to help you bring more joy to your money journey. Sure, we'll talk about all the essentials, but my real goal is to help you connect your finances with what brings you joy, because money is the tool that funds the moments that matter. If you want to explore that connection more deeply, visit my YouTube channel at Larry Sprung. I remember early on, I went to a lot of networking groups, and in a very short period of time, I stopped because, like you said, I felt like it was very transactional. There was an expectation that I was going to give something in order to get. And I agree. I think, building those friendships is a much better perspective and kind of viewpoint of shifting kind of the whole idea behind it, and building those friendships comes from, action and understanding. And I've heard you share a story that when you had Mace Curran as a speaker, I found this incredible, that you made a point of having a record player and two of their favorite albums in the hotel room where she was booked to stay. What do you think that little bit of extra does when it comes to building connections? Because I feel like that sometimes gets lost and definitely wouldn't happen in a networking environment, sure. Right?
Yeah, I think, everybody wants to be seen. Everybody wants to feel valued. And so that's just a regular thing that I do all the time. So Mace was coming in to participate in a retreat that I was throwing, and we were going to spend 4 days together in Rhode Island at this retreat. And so we were putting her up the night before in a different hotel before we traveled from Connecticut to Rhode Island. And I knew what her favorite groups were. And I knew that there was a record player in the room where she was staying. So I bought, those two albums and had them wrapped, and they were waiting for her when she, checked in. And she had a blast playing those. And it took what was already a very good relationship. It just took it up a notch, because I think she knew that I listened to her. And, those bands that she was fans of just came up in casual conversation. And for most people, that stuff is kind of throwaway stuff. But it's just like, me coming into this prepared, knowing that Zach and Jeremy and your wife, Denise, and just, doing those basic things, it takes relationships to a new level.
Yeah. Yeah, it moves it from, relationship to friendship much more quickly. Yeah. And, you're doing what everybody probably should be doing, but 98, 99% of the folks are not. So you easily separate yourself right out of the gate.
And it doesn't have to be anything outrageous. I think people think you have to do these, unbelievable, over the top things. But I'll give you an example. I was in the post office, and because I send out a lot of stuff, I was in the post office and I saw that Muhammad Ali was just featured on a new postage stamp. So I'm very good friends with two of his daughters, one of them being Laila Ali, who's one of the all-time great female boxers. And so I bought a bunch of those stamps of her father, and I got some special stationery, and I sent it to Laila. And, Layla can buy her own stamps, trust me. But, just the thoughtful thought of thinking about her in that moment, she sent me a video message back, just, really, really grateful. And it wasn't grateful for the, $15 in stamps that I bought or the, $20 in stationery. It was the fact that I was thinking of her in that moment and sent her something that demonstrated that.
Yeah, that's a great example that I think a lot of people could learn from for sure. In episode 232 of the Midland Money Mindset, we had Kyle Sheely, and I spoke to him about how so few people see themselves as creative. Even if they started a business or created a product, it's kind of amazing that they still don't see them as creative. What do you think is the key to leaning into the power of creativity? Because that's something I think that you're, right in your wheelhouse.
That's interesting. See, I think of myself as wildly creative. So what I love actually probably terrifies some people. I love a blank whiteboard. I like a whiteboard with nothing on it. For a lot of people, it's like, okay, what do I do? Like, I need some direction. To me, that's how I view entrepreneurship. That's how I view life, is you can create anything you want to create. It's just up to your imagination. So you can just design anything you want. When I went to my team 2 years ago and I said, you know what? Everybody's got a newsletter. And I'm not anti-newsletter, but, I'm 58. I grew up on Rolling Stone and Sports Illustrated. I'm like, how cool would it be if we had like a nice, big, glossy magazine? And so I said, we're going to create a magazine. And they're like, oh, okay, you mean like a digital magazine? I said, well, digital, but a physical magazine. So this was our 8th issue that just came out. And when I started this, people thought I was off my rocker. They're like, nobody gets physical magazines anymore. No. Our subscriber base is almost at 100,000 in 8 issues. That's an example, I think, of just being creative. And when I look at it, I'm like, well, anybody could do that, but very few people do. It's looking at that whiteboard and saying, what can I create that adds value to the world, or that would be fun for me? And then I just do it.
Yeah. I mean, was the actual physical magazine, like you talked about, that's something that, is not very common today. So was that something that you really felt there were a lot of people out there like you that would really enjoy holding on to and having that tactile magazine? Was that really the impetus about it? Or it was really, hey, this is something I would benefit from. So let's see and see if this, gains some traction.
Both. I think there's a different value when you look at this in its digital format. As good as it is, this has so much more value. you can touch it, you can feel it, you can pick it up, you can carry it around your house, you can thumb through it. And so whether you're Meta World Peace or you're, Jesse Itzler or any of these people that we feature, I think it's a good experience for them too. So I did it really for myself, and I did it for the people that we feature in the magazine, and I did it, for our subscriber base. I thought there would be an appetite for it, and there has been.
Yeah, it's clearly caught on. So let's shift for a few minutes. Let's talk about the Outlier Project for a little bit. Sure. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about what the Outlier Project is and, what compelled you to found the Outlier Project?
Yeah, great question. It's a private invite or referral only community that celebrates people that show up differently and take the road less traveled. So those, we have about 750 members. They are Olympians, they're pro athletes, they're Navy SEALs, they're CEOs, they're entrepreneurs, they're people in entertainment. It's really a kaleidoscope of human beings, but it's people that have said, you know what, this is what everyone's doing. This is where the thundering herd is going. We want to be different. We want to take the proverbial road less traveled, because that is really where all success lies. When you look at whether it's yourself in wealth management, if you're doing exactly what everybody else does, where is the value? And then you see people, like a Warren Buffett, who's not exactly in the same exact business, but, he just decided, I'm going to be different. And you see the success that those people have had. So we created this community that has absolutely exploded and is by far the most fun I've ever had in my life. I've always been very fortunate that I've never really had a job that I hated, but I never had the proverbial, you'll never work a day in your life if you love what you do, or you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. I was always working. I was very cognizant I was working. And not until the Outlier Project did I ever feel like, boy, this does not feel like work at all. Like, I cannot wait to get out of bed every day and support the incredible community that we have. And we do that through 200 live interactive virtual events a year, then 13 signature in real life meetups. We just got back from Nicaragua and did a humanity expedition. This is our third year going to Nicaragua, and then go and hang out with Dominique Wilkins next week. And then, DC, LA, Chicago, Austin, London, we're all over the place, but just really trying to support people that are trying to live an extraordinary life.
Yeah, going back to that impact we spoke about earlier. And, you've spoken of the Outlier Project being an eclectic room of people. Why do you value being in an eclectic room?
It goes back to that creativity piece. I think most people live in a bubble, Larry. Most people live in these bubbles where, I just talked to somebody last week who was in HR, and I don't think she really thought she lived in a bubble. But when I said, like, are you a member of any community? She said, well, yeah, I'm a member of SHRM. I said, okay. Do you go to conferences? I do. Every conference she goes to is HR. Uh-huh. Who do you connect with? HR people. What content do you consume? HR content. So you live in these bubbles. And I think the danger is they become echo chambers. There's not a lot of creativity and innovation there. And, I think you get those sparks of creativity and innovation from unlikely sources. So for me, I'll have a hospitality experience, or I'll have an experience through a CPG brand, and I'll love the way that it made me feel. And I'll think, well, okay, I love that. How do I integrate that into my business? Even though I'm not in the hospitality business, I don't have a consumer packaged good. I think you can connect the dots. And when you're around people that are different from you, that's where the sparks of creativity and innovation lie.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, listen, I don't run a baseball team, but I listen to Jesse Cole's Fan First, and I got a lot of great nuggets from that, right? And just different mindset, different people, different ideas. And I'm not in the baseball business, but there are certainly things that he does in his business that translate very well into our experience with the families we serve.
We're actually studying Jesse in the Outlier project. We just finished the study on Taylor Swift. And, you'd say, well, why are you studying Taylor Swift or why are you studying Jesse Cole? Like, you're not an entertainer. You're not, in the baseball game. But I think you can learn. Success leaves clues. Yeah. And you can see what Taylor Swift has done to break out from the pack. You can see what Jesse Cole has done in creating the Savannah Bananas and all of the success that he's had. And, if you're good at connecting the dots, you can learn from that and implement it into your own business.
Yeah, we're in alignment there for sure. And, listen, Scott, this has been great and it's brought me a lot of joy, and we're all about joy on the Midland Money Mindset. And we ask each of our guests the same final question to tie all of our shows together. And that is, what did you do today that brought you joy and put you in the right mindset for success?
My day always starts 5 a.m. I'm either outside or I'm on the treadmill. This morning it was 19 degrees, so I was on the treadmill. So I like to get those early wins in. So I got my 6 miles in, and I did. So through the Outlier project, we do something called a dues paid workout. So I did my dues paid workout. So, by 7 o'clock, I've already done all that stuff. And then this is really my first joy of the day, is to be on this podcast with you. This is the first, meeting that I've had today. And, it's just fun to be able to share time with somebody that I respect so much, and be able to, share some of the things that have brought me joy and success in my life. So I appreciate, the opportunity to do that and share it with your audience.
Same, Scott. Thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate it, and appreciate your vulnerability there and sharing that with us. So we're going to have all of your information in the show notes about all the things you're up to, including the Outlier project. But if people want to learn more about you, learn more about what you're up to, what's the easiest and the best place for them to do that?
Yeah, LinkedIn is definitely my platform of choice. I am still a novice at Instagram. I cannot figure out Instagram to save my life. So you certainly can find me on Instagram, but you're probably going to have a lot more luck. So if you're, if anything that I've said today seems interesting to you, send me a message on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to connect and continue the dialogue.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Scott. Thank you for taking out the time and sharing your story and these great nuggets with me and our listeners. I really appreciate it, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, Larry. I appreciate it.
If today's conversation resonated, it's probably because Scott MacGregor reminds us of something we often forget, that success isn't about chasing applause, titles, or numbers. It's about impact. It's about connection, and it's about having the courage to live into the answers before you fully know the questions. Scott's journey from record-breaking executive to founder of the Outlier Project and Outlier Magazine proves that when you lead with curiosity, creativity, and genuine human connection, success stops feeling hollow and starts feeling meaningful. This is what the Midland Money Mindset is all about, redefining what it means to live a life of joy, purpose, and intention. One powerful conversation at a time. Scott MacGregor and everything he's up to can be found across most social media platforms. All the contact information needed to find them can be found in the show notes.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Midland Money Mindset. Remember, it's not just about the money, it's finding joy in the journey and embracing the right mindset. If you love the show, be sure to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Don't forget to follow along for more tips and inspiration. Please visit the social links below to connect with Larry or his guests. Until next time, keep smiling, keep thriving, and remember to think about, what did you do today that brought you joy?
The opinions voiced in the Midland Money Mindset Show with Lawrence Sprung are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. Past performance is no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly. Investing involves risk, including possible loss of principal. No strategy ensures success or protects against loss. To determine what may be appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, accountant, financial or tax advisor prior to investing. Investment advisory services offered through CWM LLC, an SEC registered investment advisor. Guests on the Midland Money Mindset Show are not affiliated with CWM LLC.